Alex here with the Legal Nuts and Bolts video on judicial time limits. A lot of people ask me, the judge is taking forever. Why am I not getting an order? Is there a time limit? Most of the time, there is no time limit, and that's a very scary thought. A lot of people think to themselves, well, what if my judge takes 6 months or a year or 2 years to render a decision? That is a very good question to ask, and it doesn't happen a lot, but it does sometimes happen. And there are sometimes time limits, but it's not on like on a wide scale. It's just in certain oddball situations, niche cases. For example, if you file a towing complaint, the court has 4 days to set a hearing in Nevada. For example, if you have a fast track child custody or criminal appeal, there is like a 120-day time limit. In the second judicial, actually no, in all of the district courts in Nevada, there is a 60-day, I can't call it a time limit. What it is it's a requirement for the judges to send a list to the Supreme Court on any cases that have pending decisions that haven't been entered for 60 days. So it's not really a time limit, but it's kind of a, in a way it sort of is, because the judges really don't want to have to send a list to the Supreme Court showing things that they're taking forever to make a decision on. So it kind of ends up being a time limit that's just unofficial that the judges sort of try to abide by. The justice courts, as far as I know, have no time limit at all. I don't think they report to anyone when they have decisions pending for who knows how long. In other states, it's probably the same thing. Who knows? Other states might have a rule, just a blanket rule that the entire judiciary has to abide by. Maybe other states aren't like Nevada, but in Nevada, there really isn't a hard and fast rule on how long the judges can take before they render a decision. A couple other things I want to mention on this topic. People have tried to force a judge to render a decision using a writ of mandamus. I've seen this attempted before, and I've never seen it work. I have seen all of the petitions denied. It appears to me that they were entered by inmates who were in prison and waiting around, and I think there was one that was a regular civil action. I don't remember any of the details, unfortunately, and the gist of the response from the Supreme Court of Nevada was that we understand you're waiting a long time, but these matters are complicated, and we're going to assume that the judge is taking a long time because it's a very tough decision, even though, from what I saw, some of those people were waiting for over a year to just get a regular motion responded to by the court, to just get an order. I haven't seen it tried in the context of an emergency or a time-sensitive issue, though. So it makes me wonder if possibly something like that might work in a child custody case where a parent can argue that if the judge doesn't hurry up, the whole thing may become moot. Like maybe it has to do with like a school or something, you know, the children going to a certain school or something before the school starts. I don't know. I haven't seen this done before. I have been keeping an eye out for these because I want to see if it's possible for somebody to actually force the judge to make a decision. Unfortunately, at this time, I haven't seen that work. I've just seen it attempted. The last thing I was going to mention on time limits is, even though, like I mentioned, there were a few examples where there were specific time limits that the judges were supposed to abide by in certain situations, if a judge does not, if a judge violates the law by taking too long, it wouldn't be enough really in and of itself to trigger some kind of response, I don't imagine, if the judge had some kind of excuse. Because if anyone here has watched my video, Contempt of Court, the violation of a court's order in and of itself isn't really something that can be used against a person. It has to be demonstrated that the person violated the court's order intentionally. So I imagine even if there was a time limit, a strict time limit imposed in like a court rule or a statute, if a judge was violating that rule for a legitimate reason, I still don't, I mean, and maybe that's why we don't have these rules, I still don't see what anyone would be able to really do to that judge. In the end, I imagine it just comes down to incompetence and whether or not the Commission on Judicial Discipline in Nevada is going to do anything about a judge who's taking way too long to render decisions. I know that it has happened actually very recently, this year. For the first time, I've never seen this happen before. For the first time, as far as I know, the Commission on Judicial Discipline is suspending a judge for not rendering decisions in a timely manner. There's no rules that really state that he had to render one by a specific date and time. What they did was they looked at his caseload and why he wasn't filing decisions, and they didn't have find that he had a reasonable basis for it, and so they suspended him. Not only that, but he's facing a second disciplinary action right now as we speak, and may be removed from the bench. So maybe rules on time limits have no point. Maybe it just comes down to looking at whether a judge is taking a long time because it's complicated and the judge is busy, or because the judge is incompetent. And I wanted to do this video because this is a question I do get a lot. A lot of people are waiting around, waiting for a judge to render a decision, and it's just taking months and months and months, and with some people over a year, which is really unnerving, especially in a child custody action. The last thing I want to mention is proposed orders may not necessarily fall into line with everything I mentioned in this video. If a judge has ordered an attorney to draft a proposed order and the attorney is taking too long, that's a different situation, and a person may be able to deal with that by asking the court to allow them to instead draft the proposed order, or asking the court to draft the proposed order itself because the attorney is taking too long. And that may even include some kind of sanction on the attorney if the court gets upset that the attorney wasn't preparing the order like they were supposed to. If anyone here doesn't know what I'm talking about, please watch my video on proposed orders. That'll pretty much explain everything to you as to what they are and how they work. It's definitely a must watch. If you haven't watched that video and you're representing yourself, you're really setting yourself up to be ambushed, I guess it's the best phrase I can use. I'm going to go ahead and end this video, and I will see you guys next time.